If you, this is one of two, so if you don't like any of these people, tomorrow we're doing another cartoon voice panel with 5 other people, but you will like these people because we have got assembled 5 of the top people in our business, people that I think are just enormously gifted and talented. My name is Mark Evanier. I put these things together every year because I have nothing better to do in my life. And every year I ask a bunch of people I've worked with to come in here and demonstrate what they do, and every year the crowd gets larger and larger. People get more and more talented. It's amazing. Let me introduce to you these folks. On the far, my far left and on your far right, owing to a strange discrepancy in this room of left and right, gentleman who you were here for the Quick Draw panel. You know that he is one of the cast members of the Muppet Babies show. He was Robot Man on Robot Man. You've heard this man in the movie Toy Story. You heard him in Chicken Little. You've heard him many times. You didn't know you were hearing him. This is one of the top voiceover artists. This is Mr. Greg Berg, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to say this is one of the top voiceover artists in the business about all of these people, especially this next gentleman who you heard on the This is Mr. Maurice LaMarche. Also heard of the Muppet Babies on a show I did years ago called Dungeons and Dragons, soon to be out on DVD in November. Anyway, this is Miss Katie Lee. Our next 2 people comprise about half of the G.I. Joes and Transformers. This gentleman is the voice of Plastic Man. He was the voice of many a Smurf. This is Mr. Michael Bell. The voice of Cornfed on the Duckman show, the voice of Odie on the Garfield show, the voice of Gridlock on the Transformers show, Mr. Greg Berger. All right, now we start here with a traditional question for each of you. I'm going to go down the line. A 2-part question. Part number 1 is, what is the voice you've done that when people meet you, they most want to hear you do for them? And of course, you have to demonstrate. The second part of the question is, tell us a time that we heard you in something and didn't know it was you. Something obscure you did. It could have been a voice you looped, it could have been a commercial, or it could have been a cartoon, something that when you tell us about it, we're going to go, I didn't know that was him. Greg, why don't you start at the far end? By the way, to clarify, that's Greg Berg. This is Greg Berger. We do not have Greg Burson here. Tomorrow we'll have Bob Bergen here. We don't have Corey Burton here. One of these days we'll get all of you together and we'll have Walker Emerson and Frank Welker. So we'll have Berger, Berg, Burson, Berger, Walker, and Welker. All right.
And that's the qualification for being in this business.
All right.
So,
what's the voice you do that most people want to hear you do?
There were a couple of voices that I've been doing the longest. Depends what media you listen to or watch. I'm, of course, known for Baby Fozzie Bear and Scooter on the Muppet Babies.
Where Fozzie's just a little bit like Big Fozzie, only a little bit dumber.
And Scooter is always working on the computers and a little bit brighter than all of them. So it winds a lot to you.
Katie did Rolf on that show. Could we have Rolf and Fozzie have a brief conversation?
I haven't seen you in a long time, man. You look far out.
Yeah, it's still the same size, though.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I wish I could say the same for myself.
Oh, I recognize you wherever you went.
Thank you. You know, my mother saw that show when we first made it. I did a dog. She said, honey, that looks just like you when you were a little kid with ponytails.
That's very sad. Greg, give us an example of a voice that you did for some commercial or looping or something you did and nobody knows you did.
Well, thank goodness to the unions, they put our names at the end of the shows that we do, so you probably see my name flash up. I guess I'd say on the Ninja Turtles from many years back, I replaced one of the characters for Donatello. And so basically, I was doing Donatello more like a Woody Allen-ish kind of character. I stood in for about 4 more episodes, or 4 to 8 episodes there, and it was for Barry Gordon, who did the original Donatello voice. And so when you see different credits for me, it might say fill in or stand in for those particular episodes.
One of the things Greg does that I find amazing is in movies they have a thing called looping, where an actor will come back and after they film the movie, he will do his voice and dub it in over existing footage. Sometimes they can't get the actor back, sometimes he's not available. So Greg's one of the people they bring in to match someone's voice. Tell some of the people you've matched over the years, and we've heard them perform and didn't know that somebody else was doing it.
Yeah, I think in that case, they don't usually give you credit for sounding like somebody within the movie. This is like when an airplane might go over while they're filming the movie and they might have a line or two to replace, or they want to clean it up for the TV version of the movies. I've did John Travolta's voice in movies in the early days, Chains of Gold I think it was called at that time, so it's one of those lesser known ones of John's. Harvey Keitel's voice I did.
Give us a little Travolta.
Well, I do like John Travolta from the early days, and I want to thank you all for being here and enjoying all my work, which I hope Greg Bird does all my voices for. And I'd say Harvey Keitel's a voice that I was picked to do for the movie Be Cool when they sanitized it for TV. And Harvey's more like, Brooklyn, New York, and I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so I listened to him, I know what he was saying, and that kind of stuff. And they said the voice is close enough to him, so whenever he would cuss in that particular movie, I would say the clean words for him. Little unknown guys at James Tolkien. James Tolkien is a bald gentleman who was in Top Gun, and they just needed somebody to sound like him. Well, basically, I could do Adam Sandler for his movies. Does anybody want me to do them? And I figured if anybody else out there needs a double, current, maybe like like Billy Crystal, and say, hey, I can host the Oscars just as well. Just put a big curtain in front of the stage. And even create like a Whoopi Goldberg and do my own version of comic relief. So, do Billy and... it's got me, Robin Williams. Maurice does Robin Williams, so three of us. Hey guys, it's
Talk to Robin Williams, he can come up with the money. Whoa.
Guys are too funny. I'm just gonna watch you two live, okay? So, there's just obscure voices that are running around in my mind when somebody says, "Who do you do?" And it's not the typical Jimmy Stewart, and slowly but surely, other people start picking up on it, and now you've got people that sound better than the original. And
But yes, I was the Golem's voice. Oh, I'm Golem here. Oh, my friend.
People want you to do when they meet you. I have a hunch which one this is.
Great!
Orson Welles!
William Shatner.
Get me a jury and tell me the difference between Rain and Orson Welles now. That's the one I get the most, requests for. The one that I think people don't know it's me. In fact, people who know it's me still go, "That wasn't you." And sometimes I go, "That wasn't you." I did. How many people here saw Team America: World Police? Yes. One day, you'll look back on this world us actors helped create and say, "Good going, fag." I played Mr. Aaron Warren in Team America, and
Tell them about the other time you did Orson Welles in a movie.
well, yeah, and then this is one of those times where you don't get the credit. So I took the money, and they actually, as we asked for more credit, they kept upping the price. No, we can't give you credit. I did again Wells for you're talking about for Ed Wood. Vincent D'Onofrio had played, there's this powerful scene where Johnny Depp as Ed Wood meets Orson Welles and Musso Franks, and Welles is working with his script, and D'Onofrio, they lit him, he had just the right amount of weight on him, looked perfect. They sent me the dailies, and because Burton was a fan of animation, he was aware of Pinky and the Brain, and he said, get me the guy who plays the Brain, because D'Onofrio had this, he'd chosen to do this sort of effete, sort of reedy kind of sound. He said, how do you do it? I'm Orson Welles. And I was like, you look like him. You got a deep voice when you speak naturally. Why did you go to the high, reedy, effete place? So
So you can get paid.
yeah, so I could make, triple what normally I would. And, but they would not give me credit, so I ended up doing the Orson Wood. You know, Ed, you've got to be true to your dreams. And he stands there in the Angora sweater, and his nipples get hard, and he realizes he's gotten the word on high from Orson Welles. That's, the other thing that I guess people don't know I'm in, that I'm kind of proud of, is it's this.
We know why you fly. We are American Airlines.
That's my current, like, invisible voice actor.
Would you sell some Fruit Loops for us?
I even have a visual aid. Isn't that interesting? Tom Ruger, creator of Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs, Tiny Toons, tech producer, just gifted me with my character. That's one of the cool things about being a voice actor is you actually like get little standing things of your characters that you can fill up your office with, and you look like a gigantic 5-year-old. This is very sweet, and I've been the voice of Toucan Sam since 1985 when Paul Frees, the original guy, passed away.
So I follow my nose. It always knows. Kellogg's Fruit Loop cereal with natural orange, lemon, and cherry flavor.
Katie, your turn. What's the voice people most want to hear you do?
Well, you already heard Rolf. So actually lately, because I'm around a lot of kids, and I did the first 2 seasons of Totally Spies. So,
There are Totally Spies fans in the house?
yeah, so a lot of the kids went, who do you do on Totally Spies? Which one are you? And I'm Alex, and I say, oh, those are the coolest shoes, Clover. Can I please borrow them? Adventures in Odyssey fans in the house. I don't know if they come to Comic-Con or not, but that's a radio show we've been doing for almost 20 years. So, yeah, but she sounds a lot like me. Her name's Connie Kendall, and I play her on that show. So that's a real big request. And who have I done who you might not know? I have some black friends who get a really big kick out of the fact that I looped a couple lines in the color purple, because I don't really do impersonations. I do a lot of kids' voices, teenagers. I impersonate actors who aren't famous. So if they need to redo their voices, they'll call me in, and there's a little scene where Oprah gets out of jail, she comes home, and she meets her family, and her daughter says, hi mama, nice to meet you, something like that. Hi mama. So I was like, she did this black. So they get all excited. She was black. I do her, and then one other one in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I looped the Maharaja in that movie, who says something like, I too have heard the rumors of the terrible Thuggy Cove. You didn't know that, huh? Now you know.
Give us a little of the character in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, well, every line ends in an exclamation point, right?
That's right, yes.
Bobby, look out!
I wrote that.
Yeah, you wrote that. Thank you.
Yes, anyway. Let's move on to Mr. Bell here. Sir, what is the role that most people want to hear you sound like?
You know, it always depends upon the age of the person asking me.
Yeah.
That is pretty much the case. The older folks want me to do either Prowl from Transformers. And he's closer to someone we all hear most of the time when we see all the Dirty Harry movies. And in fact, you can't even move your mouth too much. You have to keep it real still, keep your teeth together. And Swoop, of course, will talk like that. Oh my God, we're real close. Transformers ahead, etc. And then when they're young people, generally they're asking me to do the Rugrats characters that I've been doing for the past 10 years, which are Chucky's dad, who sounds like this. It sounds just like Chucky, because he's got an asthma problem as well. And Grandpa Boris, who talks like that. He's very, very sweet. He says, "Sweetheart, get over here right now. I'm going to talk to you." And of course, those of you guys that have been around a little bit longer, there was Lazy Smurf, who was in this. And there was Grouchy Smurf, who I hate Smurfette. And I had one more Smurf, and at this point I think it's handy. His back voice was over here. He said, "Well, I'll do Papa Smurf. Are we there yet, Papa Smurf? Are we there yet?" Now, the voice that people may or may not know that I did for commercials years ago.
Now, let me interrupt here. Years ago, I used to get together with voiceover actors, and this man was the envy of every other voiceover actor in the world, because it was alleged, I don't know if it's true or not, that he had made more money than any other actor in the history of voiceover for saying basically one word.
Butter. Thankfully, with the residuals for that, I bought Panorama City, but I had to sell it when my career went in the toilet. And recently got to do work for Stephen J. Cannell, which I didn't even know I was doing. I had to do a parrot in a movie called It Waits that just got released. And most of us in the panel do parrots. It's probably nothing for us, but for those of you out there, it's,
Oh my goodness, get the hell out of here. I love you.
And I have a new film out now called Gamers, which is about you guys, which is absolutely one of the funniest things that I've ever seen. I don't play board games. It's a Dungeons and Dragons kind of board game, and it's about these guys who started the longest board game in the world from the time they were kids, and now they're in their 30s living in their grandmother's basements. They've gone nowhere with their life. And if you want to get a chance to take a look at it, on gamers.com. It's absolutely hysterical. That's the latest thing that I've done. And of course, for commercials, it's wouldn't you want your baby to be a Gerber baby?
Thank you, Michael. I'll tell you a quick personal story. One of the first mini cartoon shows I wrote was Plastic Man. I don't know if you've ever seen Plastic Man on the Cartoon Network and stuff. And Michael was Plastic Man in that show. And it basically had a voice director who was to good voice direction what Orson Welles was to roller disco. It was not great. And there was one script where I had written something and the voice director misinterpreted it. And Michael, I was not in the session, but I was told this by a man named Joe Baker, who was also in the cast. Joe was Hula Hula on that show, the Lou Costello type voice. He said, Michael Bell understood what you wanted, and Michael said, I will not do it wrong. And the director started demanding that he do it the wrong way, and Michael, who was a very perceptive actor, insisted on doing it his way. I think threatened to walk off the show if he couldn't do the line right. So he finally did it. The director gave in. Michael did it. And I was sitting in a meeting. I was sitting in a meeting with Marty Krofft, and the phone rang, and it was the cast calling me. I don't know if you remember this. The cast called me to thank me for the script. And my stock with Ruby Spears went up about 12 points that day because we had actors who knew how to read and wouldn't kowtow to a bad director. And I thank Michael for that over the years. Greg, what's the voice people, I know what the voice is. What's the voice people most want to hear?
Me Grimlock, me Dinobot leader. Slag and sludge do what Grimlock say. Me smart, but me have severe pronoun troubles.
Could we hear a little corn-fed from the Duckman show?
Well, you could hear a little corn-fed, but I'd have to work very close to the mic. I'd have to do essentially the minimum of everything, and whatever was left would be corn-fed. But if you take this just a little bit further, I'm one of the voices of Eeyore for Disney. There's a couple of us at this point. I've offered to arm wrestle for it, but there's no takers.
going to ask Greg if he would get us to all try to switch our cell phone companies.
T-Mobile asks, is 1,500 minutes enough for even the biggest stars? Let's find out.
That thing is on every 3 minutes.
Well, let's keep it that way.
Give us a couple other obscure things.
Well, there is a lot of calls still for, I did the animated Men in Black as Agent K. Shoot him, Jay. Shoot him. He's a cerebrophacaloid. Their brains are in their bottoms. You know where to aim.
Is there anyone here from Florida? Anyone from Florida? What's the station you do the announcement on?
WEDU, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota. The following program is made possible by a grant from someone with a lot of money to spend.
Now you live in Thousand Oaks. How do you be the announcer for a station in Florida?
Well, as everybody on this panel knows, and most people in voiceover know, it is possible, only in voiceover, I think, to be two places at one time. So there are a lot of mobile deliveries, and the fact that any or all of us have ended up to some degree becoming internet businesses is nothing short of astounding. But you can provide voice from almost anywhere to almost anywhere, either by MP3 or ISDN connection, which opens up broadcast quality in the receiving city, no matter where your host city is. And it can be transatlantic. I don't think there are any restrictions. So literally, there are voiceover guys who live on mountaintops in Colorado and are people that you probably hear every day. It has allowed itself to sort of piggyback on other digital technologies so that it's really possible. I mean, the extreme example for me was I was doing a film in Russia, in Moscow, while we were doing Duckman, and they sent me with a digital audio recorder, compact, which I had to explain at customs. It looked like spy model number 1. But I took it, and the director would call me in my hotel room in Moscow once a week, direct me by phone. I would have the phone at this ear, the condenser mic on the other side, and do digital audio tape reads of their script. They said I would loop it when I got home, but they said the quality was so acceptable by the time they cut it into the animator's track that if necessity had made it impossible for me to get back, they literally could have gone to air with what I was providing over a portable digital audio tape player.
Amazing. Now we're going to demonstrate here what these people do and how they do it. Those of you who have been here the last 2 years have seen me have actors destroy an episode of the Superman radio show. Today we're going to destroy an episode of the Flash Gordon radio show. And I want to emphasize that these actors have not seen this script in advance. This is what's called a cold reading, and I'm going to pass out scripts. I am going to assign roles, just as we do it in what we call the biz.
Because my
Have
kids
children
are
in the eye.
All right, now there are in this thing a number of roles. Mr. Bell, we're going to make you Flash, Gordon. Mr. Berg, you're going to be announcer number 1, who has a short part here. Mr. Berger, you're going to be announcer number 2, who has a larger part here. Katie, you are Dale and Aura. Dale is the wholesome woman, and Aura is the sluttier woman. So, cast your voices. You flunked the audition. I'm sorry. All right. Mr. LaMarche, you will be Dr. Zarkov.
Thank God we're not doing the Flash Gordon version.
All right.
Mark,
Yeah.
what are the ages?
Early 20s to 20s to 20s. Okay.
I recall Zarkov
What?
had something like a slight accent.
He was a little Germanic.
Man.
Yes,
So
he was a
Flash is in his 20s?
Flash is in his 20s.
Props!
Stunt double, all right. Mr. Berg, you're going to be Ming the Merciless, the sinister villain here. You lucky person. Mr. LaMarche, you will also be Zune, who is an alien creature who Flash encounters. Everybody will be a monkey man. When we come to the monkey man, everybody will be one. When we come to the slaves, everyone will be one. When we come to the crowd seat, everyone will be one. Mr. Berg, we're going to stick you all, Mr. Berger, no, Mr. Berg, we're going to stick you also with slave number 1. And here.
And that bumps you up the double scale, Greg. Don't
Okay. Now, there's going to be one slight little catch to this. Many of you know an improv game called Change. Every so often, I will call change. When you do that, after you do a line, if I call change, you do the exact same line again in a different voice. All right? Then the next time that character speaks, you have the option of continuing in the new voice or going back to the original voice. Everybody got that? If I say change,
Isolate one, you say?
if I say change, do the same line again in a different voice. In fact, as different a voice as you can come up with.
Did you? Oh, slaves.
Okay.
There's
Yes.
one line for slave.
Yes. And Mr. LaMarche, at some point during this extravaganza, not as the main characters, but as the changes, I would like a cameo appearance by Peter Falk. and a cameo appearance by Dudley Moore.
All
right.
This absolute power thing is going to your head.
And let me remind, yes, this is the one thing I get to do where I get to boss people around who can't quit. All right.
Did you say I was slave 1?
You're slave 1, yes. Berg is slave 1. Let me remind you again that you have never seen this script before, and by the way, if this works out well, we'll do the same script tomorrow with 5 different people. Trap them. All right. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Berg, would you give us a deep radio announcer to start? And I think, Mr. Berger, I think this announcer is going to have to speak very fast. All right. Begin.
Presenting for the first time on radio, the amazing interplanetary adventures of Flash Gordon and Dale Arden.
Change. Again, different voice.
Presenting for the first time on radio, the amazing interplanetary adventures of Flash Gordon and Dale Arden.
Racing high above the earth, comfortably seated in a giant airliner, Flash Gordon, internationally famous athlete, looks admiringly across the aisle at Dale Arden, the lovely young companion of his air voyage. Suddenly, there's a violent jar. The plane lurches into a spinning nosedive. Flash Gordon's trained muscles carry him across the aisle to the frightened girl to gather her in his arms and then leap free of the falling plane and, pulling the ripcord of his parachute, glides to earth.
Don't be frightened, Dale. We're landing now. Careful. Easy. Are you all right, Dale?
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, look, Flash. There's a large steel door. It's closing.
Well, that's the laboratory of the great scientist, Dr. Hans Zarkov. He's coming this way. I hope you'll pardon us for breaking in on you so unceremoniously, Doctor, but you see, we had to bail out and...
I see you for what you are. Spies, come to steal my secrets. But I have the answer for that. Come with me.
Change.
I see you for what you are. Come to steal my secrets. I have the answer for that. Just come with me.
Change. Maurice, here again, up again.
I see you for what you are. Spies. To steal my secrets. But I have the answer for that. A vodka martini, shaken, not stirred.
Come with me? Okay.
I get the go. All right.
Put that gun away, Professor Zarkov. The man is mad, Dale. We have to humor him. All right, Professor, all right. We'll come with you.
Get down this ladder. Into this tower. Down, I tell you.
Change.
Get down this ladder. Into this tower. Down, I tell you.
All right, all right.
There now. We're in my rocket ship. And in 10 seconds, we'll be on our way to the new planet. We will all die. Die for science.
Oh, Flash, the doctor is mad. This rocket ship is breaking away from the Earth with the speed of light. Right into the path of the new planet.
tight, Dale. We'll escape somewhere.
Change.
Hold tight, Dale. We'll escape somewhere.
It's gonna be really funny.
But what will you gain for science if we're all killed in the crash?
I know who you are, Flash Gordon. The world's greatest athlete. But your trained strength will not save you. Only my mind, the mind of Zarkov, the scientist, can save you. Can save any human soul upon the earth.
Change.
I'm going to have another drink. Do you want another drink?
Change.
I know who you are, Flash Gordon. You're the world's greatest athlete. I've seen your work. It's fantastic. You think you're strong enough to fix up this eye? Not when your trained strength will not save you. Only my mind. The mind of Zarkov, the scientist, can save you. Can save any human soul upon the earth.
The turbo drive! He's reaching for the controls!
Stand aside, Dr. Zarkov.
Feel it. The gravitational pull of the new planet. This is fantastic. We crash in 5 seconds.
There's a big crash sound effect here.
The rocket ship hits the planet. Dr. Zarkov and Dale are thrown from the rocket ship unconscious. Flash is thrown clear of the wreckage and lands on his feet uninjured. He rushes to the side of the unconscious girl, picks her up, and starts to carry her toward the distant towers of a city on this weird new planet. Suddenly, strange soldiers armed with ray guns appear and, capturing Dale and Flash, force them to come with them to the throne room of Ming the Merciless, Emperor of Mongo and Supreme Ruler of the Universe.
O thou indulgent Ming, most merciless majesty of Mongo, supreme ruler of all the people of the new planet, thy slaves salute thee.
Change.
O thou indulgent Ming, most merciless majesty of Mongo, supreme ruler of all the peoples of the new planet, thy slaves salute thee.
Change to Don Knotts.
Indulgent Ming, most merciless majesty among us. Ruler of all the peoples of the new planet, thy slaves salute thee.
Good. Ming shall want the earth people. Thy slaves obey, O Ming the Merciless.
Oh my goodness, get your hands off of me. I'm no slave. I'll meet your emperor as a free man and as an equal.
Change.
Get your hands off me. I'm no slave. I'll meet your emperor as a free man and as an equal.
Throw him to the red monkey man in the arena.
There is thy freedom, Earthman. Now you go into the arena to meet the red monkey man of Mongo.
Change.
I'll show you that I, a free man from the earth, am more than a match for your brainless red monkey man.
Flash reaches the bottom step leading to the arena. He leaps and swings at the nearest red monkey man. Then, grasping the fallen man beast under the armpit, Flash whirls him around in a flail, knocking off the others in all directions. In the midst of the confusion, Princess Aura, the beautiful young daughter of Emperor Ming, calls to Flash.
Quick, brave Earthman, this way. Here to my balcony.
Flash leaps up to the royal balcony and joins the gorgeously jeweled princess, who commands the slaves to keep back while she takes Flash through a secret door and into a passage leading to a private elevator.
Who are you, beautiful maiden?
I am the Princess Aura, only daughter of Ming the Merciless.
Change.
I'm the Princess Aura, only daughter of Ming the Merciless.
Princess, I owe you my life.
You are brave and handsome and strong. You must must not end so young. I've never seen anyone like you, Earthman.
Hey, where I come from, Princess, there are so many men stronger and better looking.
Get in this rocket car.
But Princess, I don't...
Hurry, hurry!
Let's see where we are here.
That's page
But
4.
Princess, sorry, how am I to rescue the Earth girl, Dale Arden?
That is why you are in my private rocket car, Earthman.
Why, what do you mean?
Dale Arden can never be rescued by you, and you, Earthman, you shall love me or die.
Change.
Dale Arden can never be rescued by you, and you, Earthman. Oh, that's the same voice. Let me do it.
Give her an accent.
Okay. Dale Arden can never be rescued by you, and you, Earthman, you shall love me or die.
Meanwhile, back in the palace, Emperor Ming is talking with Dale Arden.
Change.
Meanwhile, back in the palace, Emperor Ming is talking with Dale Arden.
Change to William Daniels.
Meanwhile, back in the palace, Emperor Ming is talking with Dale Arden.
Your companion, Flash Gordon, has escaped, but not for long. My men will soon capture him.
Change.
Oh, your companion, Flash Gordon, has escaped, but not for long. My men will soon capture him.
Change to Gilbert Gottfried.
Your companion, Flash Gordon, has escaped, but not for long. My men will soon capture him. Yeah.
What are you going to do with me, Emperor Ming?
You are pleased to me, Earth Woman. You're very pleasing to me. You will become my wife.
Never. I don't love you.
Well, we men of Mongo have no human traits, so no love, no mercy, no kindness. Whether you love me or not makes no difference.
That's not that different on Earth, actually.
I should be speaking alien, huh? Whether you love me or not makes no difference. You shall become my wife as soon as the ceremony can be arranged. Your Majesty, look into the spacecraft. Our city is being bombarded by the space gyros of the Lion Men. The Lion Men order the entire space fleet to the attack.
In the terrific battle which takes place between Emperor Ming's space fleet and the gyros of the Lion Men, the attacking gyros are driven off. The rocket ship in which Flash Gordon had been held captive is destroyed, and Flash is thrown to the ground unconscious. He opens his eyes to find himself staring into the great bearded face of Zoom, Prince of the Lion Men.
Who art thou? Speak! Answer me before I cleave thy body in pieces. Art thou a new kind of soldier of Ming the Merciless?
I'm a sworn enemy of that friend. I think the Emperor Ming of Mongo. He's captured a girl who's really like myself. I live only to rescue her.
An Earthman, thou think?
Oh, yes.
Enemy of Ming the Merciless?
Change.
An enemy of Ming the Merciless?
Change.
And an enemy of Ming the Merciless?
That's right. Tell me, are you friend or enemy?
I am Zoom, Prince of the Lion Men. Hereditary enemies of the men of Mongo. If thou would accept me as thy friend of men, I will gladly join thee against Ming the Merciless.
Well, here's my hand on it, then, Prince Zoom.
Good. What is thy name?
I'm called Flash Gordon upon the earth, Your Highness.
Call me Zoom, my friend, and I We'll call me Flash.
Change.
Call me Zoom, my friend, and I will call thee Flash.
Friend
The
Zoom.
other drunk Welsh actor before him. His name was Richard Burton.
Friend Zoom, do you know we can gain admittance to the palace so we may rescue Dale Arden?
Come, I will show thee a secret way into the palace.
The secret passage is known as the Tunnel of Terror because of the deadly beasts which lie within its gloomy walls. Fighting each step of the way, Flash and his new friend, Prince Zoon, finally find themselves within the palace.
Aye, listen up, Zoom, what's that?
By the great god Pau, it is the royal wedding procession. Ming the Merciless is taking another bride.
Let's let the audience do this one all together, so you can all say that you perform with these actors. The line is, "Long live Ming the Merciless." I will cue you all. Everybody?
What a cast.
Good.
Fantastic.
2,700 people now getting the scale.
That was the CGI.
Yeah, that's right.
Zoom, save yourself. I'm going to rescue my Earth friend Dale Arden. She's being forced into a marriage with Ming the Merciless.
Prince Zoon of the Lion Man does not save himself at the expense of his friends. If thou must die, I will die fighting with thee.
Dale! This way, Dale!
Oh, watching after them!
This way, Dale!
Down this passage, Earthling. Oh, sorry. You didn't tell me to change. But down this passage, I take direction. Down this passage, Earthling, and faster thou canst run there. Crying out loud. Down this passage, Earthling, and fast as thou canst run, quick you.
Back to the original. They're swarming up the altar steps. Help me topple the giant idol statue over on them. Now! 1, 2, 3!
With a grinding crash, the giant idol topples over on the onrushing soldiers of Ming the Merciless, killing those in front and throwing those into confusion. The whole company, I'd read something wrong. Flash Gordon and Prince Zoom, with Dale between them, dash into the secret passage beneath the idol. The way becomes steeper. They slip and fall down, 100 feet or more into a whirling underground river. They're swept along down a raging current and over a falls into a lake. With the powerful strokes of a champion swimmer, Flash sets out for the shore, towing Dale by the hair. They reach the shore, and as Flash reaches down to drag Dale's hair to safety,
Change.
she disappears beneath the calm surface of the lake, clutched in two powerful green scaly arms. With no thought of his own safety, Flash Gordon dives to Dale's rescue and finds an adventure stranger than any which has gone before.
Don't fail to listen again next week to the continuation of the amazing interplanetary adventures of the Flash Gordon.
If you don't think we're each other's biggest fans, then you weren't paying attention. It's a love thing.
In a couple of minutes, I'm going to be taking questions from the audience. I want to ask a couple of things. Michael, would you tell us a little bit, and not that we care that much about it, but your live action, some of your live action roles that people have seen you in?
Oh, let's see. I guess started probably about 70 or 80 television
We're
shows.
really more impressed with voiceovers than live action. We want to know places we've seen you on some of the shows over the years.
Well, I was a regular on The Bold Ones, which was a series. Did the Mary Tyler Moore show, played Valerie's guy for the day. Three's Company, did that on a couple of, actually I did it on I think 3 occasions. Been a guru on that one and a dance instructor on that one. And I would say while I was under contract with Universal, I did about 50 or 60 of those suckers. Most of them on reruns now. Mannix, Ironsides, Rockford Files, and recently 6 Feet Under. in a nice nice way. And Star Trek, oh my God, you're right. Why do I forget that? Yes, I did the Next Generation, the pilot for Star Trek. I played Groppler Zorn. And then did 3 Deep Space Nines. I played a xenophile or a xenophile or a pedophile or something. With a big bladder, and every time I got angry, it went whatever. And a 2-part Bajoran, and I have the nose at home if anybody wants to buy it on eBay.
Thank you, Gordon. Is that Gordon down there? A couple of years ago, if you were at the voice panel, we read a Pinky and the Brain script, you may remember. That was written by Mr. Gordon Bressak. Sitting out there. Before I get questions from the audience, I want you to fill in this blank for me. I couldn't believe it when I was at a session. I looked across the studio, and at the other microphone was somebody you worked with. You were just amazed.
Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc, really great story. Mel Blanc, I was placed in a series at Hanna-Barbera called Speed Buggy, and I was going to get a chance to work with Mel. And I sat next to him. I was so excited because I was a young kid in the thing, and he's really good. And Mel did that arm that he used to do for Jack Benny. I thought, this is great. And as that character, I'm sitting right next to him. I'm sitting next to Mel Blanc, and he goes, and I had my line, and he has his line. He goes, okay, here's what we do. Sopping wet. Exactly. Sopping wet. And I thought, oh, he's not going to do that through the whole show because he has a lot of those. And I was sitting right next to him. And the next line he goes, okay. Something wet again. So after the first session, I went home. I mean, I literally was, blank saliva up and down my arm. The next session we had, I have Alan Oppenheimer as the guest star, and he's the evil villain. And I said, Alan, you're gonna want to sit next to Mel because all your stuff is with him. He said, oh yes, oh my God, yes. So he sits next to Mel, and I'm sitting on the left, and I got the other guy. And the other guest has no idea what has happened that first session. And he's sitting there and he's sucking up to Mel as only Alan can. And he's just having this conversation, I love you and all the stuff you've done. And we start the show and Mel does this. And I see Alan go. And then he turns around to me for recognition, looking at him like this. So he's alone. He's all alone and wet. And as each time that Mel goes, a lot in this script, I see Alan go. He's getting closer and closer to me, and I pay no attention at all. And by the end of the session, he doesn't want to say anything to anybody, and I see him wiping his arm off, and he's got the script, and he's going. That's my Mel Blanc story, and I love it.
You were amazed that you got to work with.
It was a full cast of all the Hanna-Barbera greats at the time. I was part of their 50th anniversary celebration doing the voice of Baba Louie for a bit of a song or just a line that they needed Baba Louie to say, and this was after Dawes Butler's passing. I was lucky enough to study with Dawes, and I was hoping somebody who studied with him that understood the character would get the part. And here I was that I matched the voice at that time, so I was in the room with Henry Corden, who was Fred Flintstone. Then there was Jane Jetson, Judy Jetson was there.
Janet Waldo and Penny Singleton.
Penny Singleton, they were all there. And Don Messick doing whether he had to do Scooby-Doo or all the other greats that he was known for, and me. So there I was, and then they all are looking at me, letting me do my line. But here I was in the middle of everything that I grew up watching, being part of it. So that was one of the greatest moments I've ever had.
I don't know what I had to say that time, but I said it.
We should mention, there's a lot of great voice actors in the business, but I think if you put the gay people, Sodium Pentothal, and said who are the all-time greats, most voice actors have mentioned 4 names. They mentioned Mel Blanc, they mentioned Dawes Butler, they mentioned Don Messick, and they mentioned June Foray. And Dawes, and we're fortunate we still got June. We're going to get June down here next year because I'm helping June with her autobiography, and it's going to be coming out by next year. So come back next year and get her to sign a copy of it for you. I also would like to take a moment and mention a friend of ours who passed away recently, a lovely man named Lenny Weinrib, who you may know as the voice of H.R. Puff and Stuff and Inch High Private Eye. He was on tons of Hanna-Barbera shows. He was a good friend of ours, and if you can see us now, Lenny, we miss you. Maurice, you got a story? Oh, thank you for Lenny. Thank you.
Lenny helped me get this shot. He was actually the other guy in the demo that we did for this, and he coached me on the finer points. There was a few things I was missing on Toucan Sam, and Lenny Weinrib, just to pay a little tribute to him, was the type of actor that, you know, made himself look good by making others look good, and he helped me on a few things that I was just nuancing, you know, or rather that I needed to nuance a little more. And because of Lenny, I believe I got this job. So
that's good.
He was a frequent guest star in those commercials, so they trusted his input. For me, Rob Paulson. No, that was a big suck-up answer.
How about Eric Idle?
You know what? I did not get to record with Eric. Eric wanted to record all of his stuff separately, but I did sit there and read in for him. I came voluntarily, I didn't get paid, came on my own time to Eric's private session to play Pinky's parents. And he played both the mother and the father in this Pinky and the Brain episode. So I came and read in Brain's lines with Eric to you know, kind of give rhythm, but I really wasn't needed there. Eric didn't need it. I offered my services. The first time I'd done volunteer voiceover work. You know, that was phenomenal. And Olivia Hussey did an episode, a Shakespearean episode of Pinky and the Brain, and I couldn't believe how gorgeous she was at 52 years old or whatever, however old she was. I looked across from her and said, she was stunning. She still has alabaster skin. Amazing. And, you know.
One time we were auditioning a show that I wrote, and Maurice came in an audition, and as he was leaving, the next person was walking in. It was Tim Conway. Remember this? And he dropped to his knees and kissed his ring.
I did.
Yes, that's right. And
said, yes,
Tim thought he's doing Dorf. I mean, Katie, somebody you worked with that you were just really impressed to be in the same room with.
That's about almost every time I go to work. I mean, that's the wonderful, wonderful part about being a voice actor. You just never know who you're going to work with. It's so incredible, wonderful. But what Greg said about being big fans, because I am a big fan of everybody, but I remember one time going into a session and Dave Thomas from Second City was there. And I was so surprised, and you know, you're supposed to be real cool. I started out in this business trying to be real cool, oh hi, and then I realized everybody likes to hear that you like to work it, but I saw him, I went, popped out of my mouth. I was like, ooh, and Tim Curry, oh my gosh, that's awesome, yeah, and so many people, it's just wonderful.
Mr. Berger and I did 8 years of a show called Garfield and Friends, and that show is coming, want to see an actor light up? It's coming back on the air on Boomerang in September.
Good news.
Let's talk about some of the people we had in on those shows.
Well, on those shows, it was kind of a who's who, but not necessarily of flavor of the week celebrities, which is more the order of the day. These were people that I certainly consider legendary and luminary, including Jonathan Winters.
We were having lunch. We broke for lunch, and Jonathan showed up. He was supposed to come up after lunch, and he showed up an hour early, and he just walked in and started doing a monologue for us. Remember that?
He's one of the few, well, no, actually there are a lot of people in the business who you have to actually wait for the conclusion of whatever act they're performing extemporaneously. Mark says, when all else fails, please return to the script.
One time we had Don Knotts on the show, and I don't think people know this, but the last couple of years of life, Don was almost blind, and we wanted him anyway. So what we did was I put him next to Greg, and Greg read the line for him.
Yeah, whispered in his ear, and he would remember.
And then Don would read the line out loud, and Greg was having trouble not laughing over his line. We had George Foreman on the show one time.
George Foreman, Marvin Kaplan, to know him is to love him. Robin Leach.
should we tell the Robin Leach story?
Please.
I haven't told this for a year or two here. I wrote an episode called Lifestyles of the Fat and Furry, where Garfield was, it was a parody of things. So I decided to try to get Robin Leach to do his own voice. So I called his office in LA, they said call his office in New York. I called his office in New York, they said call his office in Connecticut. I called his office in Connecticut, they said call his office in London. I called his office in London, they said he's on the Zambezi River for the next 2 months filming a documentary. So I went, okay, forget that, and I hired Frank Welker, because Frank does a very good Robin Leach. So the morning we walked into the studio, I had Frank booked for like 2 o'clock to come in and do the Robin Leach impression for us. I walked in the studio at 9 a.m. and I said to the girl at the front desk, hi, which studio are we in? We in Studio A or Studio B? And she said, oh, you're in A, Robin Leach is in B. And I went, what? She said, Robin Leach is recording in Studio B. I walked into Studio B and standing there wearing a shirt with $100 bills printed all over it I have a witness to this, was Robin Leach. And I told him what we were doing, and he said, sure, I'd love to do it. He came over and he did his own voice, and he ridiculed himself. He parodied himself more than I would have let an impressionist parody him. So, 2 o'clock comes and Frank Welker shows up and he says, okay, I'm listening to my Robin Leach tapes in the car, I'm all set to do it. And we said, Frank, we got someone who does a better Robin Leach than you. We've got some other parts here, we're going to do a different cartoon with you, we'll recast this. But Frank goes, well, who does a better Robin Leach than I do? And we said, well, we've got this guy, we found him here, play a little of the track for him and such. And Frank is, one of the best impressionists who ever lived, and he's sitting there listening, and he went, and then we all broke up and he figured it out. But that look of horror on his face for a moment there. Who else have you worked with that you were really impressed to be around?
Clearly Mel Blanc never got spit on, however. But I mean, I was the new kid, and I got an opportunity at Hanna-Barbera, and if you have the same reverence for all who came before. This sounds like from a science fiction movie, talking about generations who preceded you. But I mean, I think anyone who aspires to be in and has the wherewithal to remain in this industry has an extraordinary reverence for all of those who came before. I could hear the ghosts of Hanna-Barbera talking to me as I was walking down those halls to the first session. They seated me next to Mel. Now I know why. But it was a new Jetsons episode, and he was doing Mr. Spacely. He was smoking in those days. I mean, I've never been that overwhelmed in the presence of anyone, although I tried to conceal it and just sort of be there doing what I was supposed to be doing. But he actually fell asleep in the session while he was reading Mr. Spacely lines. This happened to me. The cigarette was burning and I didn't know whether to say anything or not say anything. Gordon Hunt in the booth called out, Mel, your line, Mel, Mel. And I saw him start, and as he woke up just like this. Jetson! If there's a moment that I treasure more than any other moment, it's that moment.
If anybody has a question, we have a microphone in the center aisle. The first rule is no auditioning or we throw you out. And I believe the microphone is going to need, I think there's a switch on it.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, fine, please.
What was your favorite cartoon to work on overall?
Favorite cartoon to work on overall?
This is for everyone.
For everyone. Berg?
I guess parts of Muppet Babies you can't really say there's one because it's almost like when you have a family. You've got so many different things you love about each person in the family. I've worked on Muppet Babies, I've worked on The Simpsons, that was an honor. And anything classic, like I was also young Huckleberry Hound for Hanna-Barbera, so getting to do that was an honor. So these are all still building on my shoulders every time I work, as Katie says as well.
I think we've got enough people on the line, so no one else join the line. Maurice?
Futurama. We start work on Tuesday.
Those are free.
Critic. It's a little show about two lab mice trying to take over. Speaking of critic, doesn't get any better than that. I'm the luckiest guy in show business.
Katie?
Oh, I don't know. I guess the Mother Babies. That was a dream come true.
Actually, can I add one more? I have a fourth that ties with these. It's probably the show that got the least respect, and I'm not just saying it because the creator's in the room. I always forget to say it, and I love it. It's a show called Captain Simeon and the Space Monkey.
That's okay. No. I've been so fortunate. I've worked on several shows that have lasted for like 9 years at a time. I mean, chunky shows. But they seem to always have Frank Welker, and they always put me next to Frank when I did the show. I miss him terribly. I haven't worked for him a long time. But they always put him next to me, and he'd always talk to me, get me in trouble. So that's why I took up knitting, so I wouldn't talk to my neighbor.
About 3 weeks ago, I was in a Costco, and my cell phone rings, and it's Donald Rumsfeld. And it was what? It's Frank Welker. And he did like 6 minutes as Donald Rumsfeld. He finally said, "How was that?" And I said, "Well, you weren't lying quite enough." He's an uncanny impressionist and voice person. Michael, what was your favorite show?
A couple, obviously, like everybody else. Super Friends was a big treat for me because it was one of the big ones for me. And never got tired of saying, Wonder Twin powers activate! Form of snot! Oh, as a matter of fact, that character closed the Hanna-Barbera Studios. It was the last thing they ever did was a little commercial, and we did it as the Wonder Twins, and they said, okay, shut everything down. And that was the last day they did anything else in Hanna-Barbera. They said, you're the last voice heard in Hanna-Barbera, which was sort of angst and strange for me because it was the first studio I ever worked at, so I sort of started beginning and ending there in that particular studio. It was really exciting. But I'd have to say, beyond G.I. Joe, which was a lot of screaming, and Transformers, which was a lot of screaming and yelling, I think for me to be able to do a lot of characters, starting out with when I did Plastic Man for Greg,
I'm a tall guy.
But I would have done a few for Mark, because I got a chance there to do all the characters that were visiting characters, because at that time they didn't have a lot of superstars coming in to do visiting characters. So that was a real training ground for me, which eventually gave me the opportunity to do Rugrats for 10 years and play so many characters besides the 3 characters that I played. So I'd have to say Rugrats, in the final analysis, gave me that opportunity as an actor to do the stuff I truly wanted to do.
Greg?
There's really no way to answer the question without it being, it has to be an answer which is inclusive rather than exclusive. The show that had it all of the elements, including never recording anything in splits where you're by yourself in a booth, insistence on ensemble recording, encouragement of expanding the script and not being limited by it, enabling our play within the room was Garfield and Friends.
And we miss you, Lorenzo. Next question.
Maybe a little bit of a strange technical question. Everyone knows that when you listen to a recording of your own voice, you think that doesn't sound at all like I hear in my head. So how do you guys know what your voices are sounding like when you're working to get them right?
Like this.
That helps.
You do Gary Owens.
Yes, I teach voice animation. When I'm teaching, I haven't for a little while because it's just so enervating. But when I do teach, when everybody comes into class and they actually ask that same question, and I say, all right, here's what you have to do. Put your hands, cup them over here, because we're not in front of a mic, and you kind of get a general idea of what you sound like. And then when you get closer to the mic, and you back from the mic, etc., you know exactly where you're at, and then you can adjust the level of your voice at that point.
And what you said about most people not liking or not recognizing the sound of their voice when they hear it played back, part of the job is to become so acquainted with what that voice is that you can use that as neutral, understand the strength of that, and work from there in any direction. Not ultimately technically, because I think all of us at this panel know that the emphasis is on the acting, not the voice. The voice will go where the acting leads you.
Next question.
I've been coming to Comic-Con for a number of years, and always the best panel has been the voiceover panels, no has always been the best that I've ever experienced. As Mark Hamill has said, the first time I ever went to these panels, like, you're the most famous people no one's ever heard of. The question, I guess, is follow on the technical. You're all workers. This is your living. So I would like to know, how much of your day do you dedicate to this life of yours that you're now leading? And what are some of the practices that you do to, I guess, to work on the voice? Since you're not a face actor, you don't have to diet, you don't have to do the hair, you don't have to... I'm not talking about you, Greg. But generally, what do you do as a voice actor? What is your work throughout the day to help for your job?
I'm always listening for voices myself, since I do multiple voices, mid to light range, so if I hear somebody with a bass voice, I won't even try to accomplish to conquer it. But since impressions are also involved, if there's somebody that I truly love, it's like impressions are the sincerest form of flattery, as they say. I would hear somebody that I really like the Gilbert Gottfrieds and a lot of the current people, Ray Romano.
Give a little Ray Romano.
Well, basically, Ray's got another show, maybe gonna do the Ice Age 14 or something like that.
A voice like that, if I really just latch onto it, it comes right away. Once I tried working on David Brunner's voice, it took me 3 months because I tried picking up his accent and all that, and it's just like playing with clays, and it depends how fast they need it too. Lately now, somebody says, tomorrow, come up with this voice, and we have to be keen enough to do that.
The real answer is, for most of us, although we create from family, friends, we really listen. And as Greg pointed out, you get inside the skin of the character, but for me, it's plagiarize, don't shade your eyes. It's why God made your eyes. You plagiarize.
Tom Lehrer.
That's exactly Tom Lehrer. The bottom line is, if you hear something you like, and if it's within your range, or maybe even outside your range, you try. Years ago, I watched Mom's Mabley on television, and I wasn't even in business. I was at home, and I listened to that great sound.
She be talking like this, honey. I love your boy, they're too cute, sitting in the front row. I love him, honey.
And I thought, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that, and I did. And it worked for me because what it did, it took me out of myself. And I said, well, I'm gonna try the voices. And most of us, that's pretty much what we do. But again, as Greg pointed out, it's got to have the foundation of acting behind it. It really has to have it. Otherwise, it's a disembodied voice.
And then I would say by the time you reach this point in a career, happily you're so busy going where agents send you and they're serving sort of as traffic directors in your life. You've got some place you have to be and some place you have to be after that, and some place you have to be after that. Most days, some days, good days. But not only, in addition to listening, you also have to watch because trends change unbelievably quickly and you have to have some sense of what ballpark you're playing in. Sometimes you need to know what it is that you're reading for, and if it's epic and worlds are colliding, or if it's characters whose noses extend, 20 feet in front of their face. It's different. There are different approaches depending on how ridiculous something is drawn. You sort of dive into the material and see where it takes you, and then open your mouth and see what comes out.
Before I take the next question, the last 5 people in the line we're not going to have time to get to. I'm sorry. Next question.
Feels really good to be here. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate you guys' talent, very much so, in just the acting, and also it seems like from just listening to you guys on stage, just to be able to have the ability to match pitch and to have perfect pitch, to do these characters, it takes a lot of talent, it takes a lot of work and hard work to even be able to do that, because a lot of people don't really have perfect pitch to be able to match these characters the way you guys are doing. So I really appreciate this time today. First of all, I just want to say that. The main question I have for you, as I'm bending down here, the question I have basically is, obviously you guys had to have a beginning point, and what made you guys realize that, hey, I really enjoy these voices, and I really want to start trying to do these voices. So what are the first voices that you guys tried to mimic or tried to create in the beginning that allowed you to expand from that point on to create all these new voices and imitate these other voices? Because there had to be a beginning point, like there had to be that one voice that really helped you guys expand further from there.
Mr. LaMarche, what was your first impression?
My first impression was that it was a fine varietal wine with a rather fruity nose. No, I'm sorry, I said my last name. First impression ever to come out of my mouth was I was like 5 years old in W.C. Fields, because some guy was doing W.C. Fields, probably Lady Wine Room, for a product called Frosh by Fuego. It was a soft drink. So I was 5 years old going, oh yes, Frosh by Fuego. And I learned I could stretch my voice a little. So it just came a question of going in different directions. And then the Peter Falk thing came out of me in the schoolyard after my voice broke, and I guess I had some of that.
Excuse me, sir, sorry to bother you. You know, there was a little crack in the voice anyway, like Falk has. That's unbelievable.
And from there, the next one was, I was watching The Persuaders, and I loved Tony Curtis. He was so suave and debonair on that show. And it just, before I knew it, I started saying, I wonder how many of these I can do. And I took out index cards, I started writing up, and I had 10, and then I had 30, and I stopped counting when I hit 100. And, now it's a question of just, what do you need? And I'll just sit with the tape for a couple hours, and if I can do it, or sometimes they find me and I kind of zen the whole thing. Sometimes things just come out of me, and as much as wanting to emulate somebody, it'll also come out of a need to mock them, to satirize them, and sometimes my impressions will actually come from my dark side. So, that's where voice. And then there's always cross-pollinating. Where you take two impressions, put them through the transporter on, Star Trek, have it break and have them come out as one guy. So.
Give us an example of that.
I wish I could.
Okay.
On the other hand, I could be completely bullshitting right now.
All right.
I used to watch, I remember growing up, watching cartoons and you just have it in you. It's like something you either have or you don't, I think, help Cecil, help! Help Cecil, help! I know watching Comedian Cecil and when Laughing came out, I remember like every woman on that show, but especially Lily Tomlin, I would just try to do all her characters and talk to myself. And I remember sitting in the car on long trips looking at myself in the window, talking to myself and singing. Like I thought I sounded like Barbra Streisand. I'm sure I didn't, but you just do it. You can't help yourself. And
it's a form of Tourette's.
Let's try to get through a couple more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Real quickly.
Yes. We've heard that you also do video game work, and I just wanted to know what are some of your more favorite projects and what projects have you done?
I just did Silent Hill for PSP. I hear it's scary. I did a kid.
Berger?
I'm playing a handsome debonair mop-attached guy in a Desperate Housewives game for Disney right now. It's not quite complete. I'm not sure how it all turns out. Should be interesting.
When you're doing some video games, sometimes they have to mic you like different ways for sense around. And
there have been a couple of projects. There was one where they took us to some kind of jet propulsion testing laboratory because it had a floating floor and they had a 360 miking system. Actually, I think that was for something that's in Disney World. Yeah, it's at Epcot. But that's right. Yeah, I mean, I believe that's it. It creates a full 360 sense around, but in order to do it, we had to essentially block it as though it was staged in the round, and the whole sound was perspective. So there's no limit to. I still think all of these technologies are in their infancy. Just when you think there's nowhere else to go, somebody figures something else out. It gets more and more and more virtual. But I did a lot of the LucasArts shows, and I mean, I've never not had a game either coming up or happening in addition to other things. You sort of don't get a sense of it picking titles off the shelf, but it's an enormous industry, and when I say enormous, it still seems to be in its infancy because of the audience's desire for the next title. It's kept all of us working.
Yeah. Let's see if we get through the last three questioners here.
I feel like I've been waiting a long time to ask this question, but when I first heard Totally Spies, I said, Fizzy? Because Fizzy was my favorite favorite Little Pony, and nobody ever talks about any of the voice work in My Little Pony. People don't realize that Nancy Cartwright was there playing Gusty.
You were all, that was the best show to be a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know, like, were there any really funny moments? Did you guys ever curse as little ponies? Like, anything interesting?
You should hear the outtakes.
Happened on My Little Pony?
I did ponies, yeah. I was the only one that, well, I was a girl at the time, but you should hear the outtakes.
Oh my goodness, yeah, it was hard because all of us, there were so many ponies. We'd started out like as 5 of them, because I think I was Fizzy, right? Yeah, okay.
I was a gelding. So.
We did, and then all of a sudden there were seahorse ponies, and then there were baby ponies, and we'd come in, and our director, Ginny McSwain, who's awesome, she called herself the Pony Master. She still does. It was just so hard. We'd say, well, what does that one sound like? I can't remember. Can you move? It was really tricky to remember all those.
She threatened you with a rectal mic if
Yeah,
you didn't
she
get your voice correct.
You should get the director's outtakes, not the actor.
I got to run for the last 2 questions because we're going to have to get out of here. Yes, please, quick question, please, and a quick answer.
Voiceover work is quite literally
42.
my dream job. And so
You're not helping.
I've been wanting to do voice work my whole life, and I was just wondering if there's any essential tips that you feel somebody needs to get into this line of work.
Study acting. Study acting, take improv classes.
Take Michael's
study
class.
acting. No, you don't take my classes. There's a wonderful class out there, but study acting and take improv classes. And don't stop sitting in your car. Don't stop acting. I'm serious.
Thank you.
Tape it, listen back, tape it, listen back, tape it, listen back. Figure out what you bring to the party.
If Michael teaches again, take his class.
Oh, that's sweet.
Until he teaches, Charlie Adler is teaching probably the best voiceover class out there right now. Yes, last question.
Yeah, I just noticed, Greg and Katie, if you listen to your voices, it's like your natural born voice talent. But all of you have a gift. It's obvious. And I was just curious. They often say that 98% of your success is dumb luck. And I was wondering, with so much competition, do you attribute some of your success to luck? And have you had lucky experiences?
I'll tell you that right now. I was suggested that I go into voice acting. I think it was because my report card said good student, but talks too much. But anyway, I was in San Francisco and I had agents, and I was real young, and they said, you know what, you got to do voice for animation. We can't help you up here. Call LA, and I got the number of an agency, Cunningham, Escott, and Depini, which is now anyway. So I called down there, and the voice agent at Cunningham, they still do it. They relieve the receptionist from time to time, and Arlene Thornton answered the phone, who's an agent. And I called, and she goes, "How old are you?" I said, 20, whatever. She goes, "You sound like you're 12. Get on down here." and it just happened that she answered the phone, and I've been with them since 1981. So that's dumb.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. If you enjoyed this panel and you want to see a completely different interpretation of the same Flash Gordon script, tomorrow at 1 o'clock in this room, we'll be doing this again with Billy West, Wally Winder, Kimberly Brooks, April Stewart, and Bob Bergen. Would you join me now in thanking Mr. Greg Bird?